Hi guys, my name is Chad Trofgruben, and this course is all about creating characters inside of Adobe Animate. I originally launched this course on Udemy way back in 2019. However, it still contains a lot of useful information and still rates pretty highly on Udemy. I'll be launching one chapter a week, and if you wish to view the course in one shot or gain access to the exercise files, you can always check out the Udemy course, which is linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.
For this video, we are working off of 22 Chad Vector Animate. Feel free to open up this file. We're now going to take a moment before we jump over to the final polishing stage and organize the timeline just a little bit more. You can see we have quite a few layers here, and things could start to get confusing rather fast if they haven't already. So let's just jump in and organize some of this. The first thing I'll do is organize all my references. So let's just unlock and reveal all these references. Come down and let's also grab the color reference and the sketch, and we can bring it all the way up here to the top. So that way, everything for referencing is all in one spot. Next, you'll see at the top next to layer, we have a folder option. So let's click on new folder. And you can see we have folder 1, and I can come in here and just rename this to references and hit enter. And I'm using all capital letters for that. It's just a preference, completely up to you if you want to do that. Now I'm going to grab color reference, hold in shift, and then click on pivot guides, and then drag it underneath references. So now I can close it, and it's self-contained, and it just makes things a little bit easier to start working with. You can also hide the references folder. So if you just want to get rid of all the references, you don't want to have to deal with it, you can do that and you can continue to work. The other thing we can do here is organize the head and body. So let's create a new folder. I'll name this one head. And let's just start adding all the head pieces into that group. So that would entail the hair in its strands, the mouth pieces, eyebrows, the eyes, and the head itself. So we'll just hold in shift and click on all that, click and drag, and bring it under that head group. So again, if I hit the down arrow, we can collapse this and it just makes it easier to look at. And same with the references. If you want to hide that head entirely, you can now do so pretty easily. I did put the hair inside of the head group. You'll notice that the ponytail is not. And that's because I don't want it in that group, because if I were to do that, let's say I put it all the way up here, you can see now that it breaks the way this looks. So the ponytail does need to be separate. I'm just going to undo that. Now we can go in and put the rest of the body pieces together if we wish. Again, just for organization, create a new group. I can double click on that and name it body, bring it here to the top, and come in, and I believe everything else has to deal with the body. So I'm just going to grab everything down to back fist and just bring it up like so. So that way it's inside. And we can keep the ponytail separate if you wish, or you could put it inside the body group. It just depends on how you want to view it. I'll keep it separate. So from here, you could continue to drill down if you wish. So now that we are in the head group, again, if you want to further organize, we could create a new folder and place it inside of the head folder. Double click and we can name it hair. So now coming into the head group, underneath this, we have all these hair pieces. So small strand, large strand, and hair could go under the hair group, just to make it a little bit easier. Same goes for the mouth and the eyes if you want to do it that way. This is, again, more for personal preference. If you just want to organize further, you don't have to do all this, but I guess it can help in some cases. So we're just going to grab that mouth and just bring it in like that. And then you have the eyes and the eyebrows. So again, if you wanted to, we could just group this all under one. Let's name it eyes. And I know the eyebrows technically aren't part of the eyes, but in this case, I'll just put it all under one, just like that. And then you have the head itself, which I don't believe we need to put into a group. So then if you go into the body, we can drill down further. Let's create a new group, and we can name this one f.leg. Here, we're just going to grab anything dealing with the front leg and bring it into that group. We have the front arm pieces, so why not? Let's do f.arm, and I will include the hand as well. So front point, open and fist can go into front arm as well. And if we want to, we can even drill down further by naming one f.hand instead of f.arm. Just grab those 3 hand poses and bring them in. So again, more organized, and that way we can easily work with this stuff if needed. And let me just look here. We have the collar, the neck, the jacket. I believe all of that can just be separate. You can put it into another group if you wish, but I'm just going to keep it separate. We'll just move on to back leg. Let's make sure we put it there. I'm going to keep this back leg where it's at, because if we were to bring it up to the other groups, it could easily break things. You can see right here that we are overlapping the torso now. We don't want to do that. So let's just keep that back leg where it was. And we have the back arm as well. So why not, right? Let's come in here. Let's get that organized. Just like that. And like the front arm, we're also going to put a hand group into this one. So b.hand, b point, b open, b fist goes into b.hand. And let's make sure that backhand is also below everything, so that way the sleeves are overlapping it and it doesn't look out of place. So from here, you could keep going down further and further and further with your groups if you wish. But I believe this gives us a good representation of what we plan to do here. The only other thing you could do, and maybe I'll just do it as well, is you could just make a main character group. So we can name this one Chad. So if we come in with that group, we can move in the other groups along with the ponytail into the Chad group. If we lock everything, we can see it's looking good. And we now have 2 main groups. We have Chad and we have references. So now you can come in here and you can reveal your references, or you could go in there individually and just pick out which references that you wish to reveal. Same with the Chad group. You can come in here and go through each of the sections easily. It's a little bit more organized, so it's easier to see, oh yeah, here's my arm. Come in here, and then you can work with your arm details. So there we go. With this now all organized, we can pause here and move on to the final polishing stage. For this video, we're working off of 23 Chad Vector Animate. Feel free to open up this file. We're going to go in and just polish up some various aspects of this design, so that way it's looking the best it can. And again, I went through this pretty quick, so there are of course always things I could touch up, but we're just going to cover the major areas that I'm spotting right now. First, we can always go in and add more details to the face if we wish. We could go in and add, for instance, face lines. So if we bring back the original reference, I'm just going to bring that reference folder back just so we can quickly take a look. You'll see that there are some lines going around the mouth and below the mouth and around the eyes as well. And so this is something that we can do. Let's hide the reference once again. Depending on how you want to do this, the lines for the mouth will need to be split up into 8 frames, especially since that's how we have displayed the mouth poses for this particular rig. And it's best to do that all on a separate layer. So let's just do that first. Let's come over here to the head, expand that, and then we have the mouth. And let's just go right outside that mouth mask. So click on the mouth mask and then create a new layer. And we can just name this one Mouth Lines. So it's still inside the group, which keeps it organized, but we can clearly tell it's outside of the mask. So now we can go in and start adding in these details on this new layer. We can zoom in, On the mouth, we'll start with frame 1, which is our closed pose. I'll grab the line tool, and let's just reduce the line width to 3. We'll keep the stroke set to black, and I'll switch it to width profile 1, just to see how this will pan out. So I'll start near the bottom of the mouth here, and just draw out a line like so. Come over here near the edge of the mouth and go up like that, and then one more on the other side. We can use the selection tool to come in and bend the lines. So we have that one, and then this one. Now we do have lines for the eyes we can add underneath, but we'll do that on its own layer since that doesn't pertain to the mouth. These lines will change as the mouth swaps through its poses. So if you want, you can come in here and just do any little touch-ups that you feel are necessary. And I think this is looking pretty good. I might just bring that one in a little bit so that it's bordering the highlight. And we want the bottom line to be in line with the nose. There we go. So next, we'll jump over here to the mouth lines layer and go to frame 2. Hit F6 to create a keyframe. And we're just going to click on these lines and move them where we need them to go. And right now I have all of my layers locked except for the mouth lines, which makes it easy to grab these and just use the selection tool and move them into position. So something like that should be good. And then we can grab the bottom line there and move it down. So now, if we page back and forth, one thing we can also do is just monitor the space between this line and the mouth. So if we click, it's down like that. We could probably move this down just a little bit more like so compared to the other one. And I'm just eyeballing this. You could turn on onion skins if you wish, but I think this is looking good. So let's jump now to frame 3 on that same layer. Hit F6 to create keyframes. And once again, we're just going to adjust. So the mouth is more closed, so I can bring up that line, grab this line, just kind of bring it over like so. And same with this one, lower it and just bring it over. And again, you can page back and forth just to make sure everything is looking consistent. And I might actually, just looking at this line, move it out a little bit. There we are. That's looking a little bit better. And then I'll go back to this one and just make sure I raise it up so that it's close to matching the other line, just like that. So now the next frame is frame 4. We'll hit F6 to create a keyframe and then just drop this bottom line down. And maybe you just raise these up a little bit. About like that. Page back just to check to make sure it's looking pretty consistent, and it looks like it is. We can keep going. F6 on frame 5, and we're just going to move things in a little bit with this. So we'll bring that one up. We can bring this over and in. And same with this one. Not looking too bad. I might just raise these 2 up a little bit, like so. That should be more consistent. There we are. It's looking better. So now we are on to frame 6, which is the O pose. Just hit F6, and we can come in. Just move that over now. It's going to now match the bottom of the mouth. So you can see it's centered like that. That's because the O pose is pushing the mouth out a little bit. So we can move that line. It's not going to match the nose exactly at the O or QUW pose. So just come in like this. I'm going to lower these lines so that they are more center. just kind of like that. And again, this one's different, but we can still page back and forth and just check to make sure everything's looking fairly consistent. And maybe I'll just grab those two and raise it up a little bit like that. I think that looks a little bit better. So now we go to the next frame, hit F6. And again, we're just going to move in and adjust some lines here. You could also change the shape of these lines. So for instance, with the O, you can maybe stretch these lines out if you wanted to match the shape more. But here I'm just going to do this simple change. And again, we're going to make sure we match that bottom with the bottom portion of the mouth, just like that. Let's go to the last frame, hit F6, and we're just going to do the same thing. So move that up and over as well. And then this one's going to go back to where we originally had it. So right about there should be good. And if we take a look, I'll page back to like frame 4 and then go back to this frame. And just looking at all this, it's looking pretty consistent. And I think that will do. So now we have the mouth lines in. And again, we don't absolutely need them, but I think it'll just help with some details and just add a little bit more to your design. The other thing we want to focus on are the lines underneath the eyes. And to do this, I'm just going to click on the head, just like that. Make sure it's unlocked. I can also lock the mouth lines now, just so we don't accidentally alter that. And while on the head layer, we don't need to insert any keyframes. We're just going to grab the line tool, and I'll keep it at the same height and width profile that I just had for the lines for the mouth. And we'll just click and drag and come in like this and add these lines just like that. And then grab the selection tool, bring this down, and then we can just come in and put this where we need it to go. So something like that should be good. And you can see when I move this line, because of the highlight, we have a little dot here from the line work. We can just hit delete on that to remove it. That should work. And that's looking better. So now, the other thing I noticed was the ponytail. You can see that it doesn't have any line work. And if we go back to the original reference, we have some line work there, right there, and then of course the shading and some highlights if we want to go that far. Let me just hide the reference again and come back here. We'll go to the ponytail layer. I'll lock the head and unlock ponytail. Make sure I have the line tool selected. And this time I'm going to go back to 6.5, so that way we're more consistent with all the other line work for the hair. And we'll start. Just come in and add some line work really quick. And I do have the snap to objects option turned on, just in case you're wondering. So it's easier for me to come in here and create these lines and make them snap together. Let's come down and just do some different things like this. And then we can grab the selection tool, start bending some lines here. And I can zoom in. At this point, it might be best to turn snap to objects off, so we can have some more control here when working with these lines. And again, we could look at the original reference and try to do this verbatim, but we can just come in and kind of make up our own little pattern here for the different line work portions of the hair. So there we are. We have that looking pretty good, and I could spend more time, but that should work for our purposes. And then we need to come in here and add in the shading. So let's unlock the hair just like that so we can sample the color. I'll hit I to grab the eyedropper, and we'll select the shaded area. I can lock the hair once again, just to ensure that we don't accidentally alter it while we're working here. And then let's come down to the ponytail, and we can start filling in. And I'm just going to come in and make sure with the brush tool, we'll select that. We set this to paint fills. And with that, my brush size can be set up here. Just click off so I can click on the brush and then come in and we'll just adjust this so it's a little bit bigger like that. And then we'll add some shading. Now it looks like the fills aren't quite working here, so I can come in and just make sure I set it to paint inside. So if I do that, we should have hopefully better luck with this. So now I can come in and just start painting in the areas I feel that need it. And the other thing too is if you have issues with the paintbrush, I know we have used this before, you could also use something like the line tool. If we come down here, you can see my fill color is set to that dark orange, but we can also swap the colors. So now that the line tool is using that darker orange. So we could zoom in then and just sort of pick the spots that we want to shade. So I could just kind of go like here, come down like that, this, and just keep moving down as we go. And if you want, you could turn on magnetics just to make sure everything's connected. But something like that. And then come in here with your selection tool. Just kind of shape up the shading. You can see I accidentally moved the fill. Just undo until you get back to where you need to be. And we can just keep going like so. And I could spend more time on this, but I'll just go up to about here. That should be fine. I can come down and swap the colors again, and then grab the paint bucket, and then just fill in this area. So now we have that shading in place. And again, you could go through and do a combination of that. So you could fill in like that, grab the brush, maybe come in here and go into some areas that you want to paint over as well. And then if you hit a spot where you're having issues with how it's conducting itself with the way the tools are working with the brush, you can always switch back to your line work, and you could just keep moving in that order and just get everything set up the way that you want it. So there you go. We now have the ponytail polished up and looking a little bit better. And for some reason, the orange fill on that ponytail seems to look different than the one on top. I'm not sure if that's the case or if it's just my eyes playing tricks on me. Let's go into the hair, unlock that again, hit I, and then select the main color, go down here to the ponytail, and then we don't want to override the fills. So let's just fill in this area. And it appears that it's looking just the way it is. So maybe it's just my eyes playing tricks on me. It just appears that's a little bit lighter. But I think it's looking good, so we shouldn't have any issues here. So now we can move on and do some other work. We will look at the limbs here and just try to polish some things up really quick, particularly the pants. I don't really like the way those turned out. The first thing I noticed with the arms, the front arm in particular, is this border with that line. So it goes all the way up and it rounds off. You can do that if you wish, but I don't think it's quite as appealing as it could be. So let's drop into the body group, go into that arm, and let's locate the bicep layer and we can unlock it. So that way we can select it and work with it. So with that layer selected, and I'll make sure I lock the hair and the ponytail just so that I don't accidentally modify them without realizing. We can grab the eraser, and with our eraser properties, let's set this to erase lines. And then coming in on that bicep, I just want to erase that top portion of the shoulder. Just make sure all the line work is gone. Now you'll notice as I do this, we are removing some of the line work on the right, which then sort of breaks the illusion here. So let's undo that and just make sure we go from here and go up like this. And that's looking a little bit better. In fact, we could probably just taper it off to about where the collar is. And you can see it kind of has this nice little transition over to the arm. So I think I'll leave it like that, as I think that's more appealing. especially when it's zoomed out. You can see how that looks. And let's take a look at our sleeves here. You can see that in the original reference, and I remember doing this, I have these two little triangles on the bottom of the sleeves. And I did draw those, but I accidentally deleted them because I thought it was a mistake when I was going through this in one of the videos. So I'm just going to unlock the forearm and just replace those lines really quick. It shouldn't take that long. I'll select the line tool. We'll come in here, and it doesn't have to be in the exact same spot, but we can go, let's say, right about here. And I have magnetics turned on. I'm just going to come in here, and we'll draw out these two triangles. Just like that. I might also just come in here and look at my profile really quick and see how this is looking. I might actually just select the triangle lines I just made and then change the profile really quick. Now let's just go with our regular profile. And then I'll just reduce this to about 3. That looks a little bit better. So now with the triangles in place, I can take the eyedropper, select the blue color, come in here and fill that in, eyedropper, select the shaded blue, and then fill that in just like that. And we can come over here to the other side and do the same thing if we wish. I'll just really quick lock the front forearm, come down here to the back arm, unlock the back forearm, and then we can once again just draw in these triangles. And I could just copy and paste this arm or even the design over to this side, but I'll just freehand it. If it's a little bit different, that's okay. So once again, I should have just probably drew that out without the profile, but I'll just select that line and just disable that profile like so. And then with the paint bucket, I can come in, make sure I grab this blue. If it's unable to be selected, you just have to go in and unlock the jacket. Then you can select that blue color, and then we can fill that in, and that's looking better. So I can lock that stuff back up just so nothing is accidentally modified that we don't want to be modified. And I can come back out here, and it's not looking too bad, especially since I freehand it. It's actually looking pretty consistent. So now I want to tackle the legs. They are a little bit too tapered off for my taste, so let's change that. I'm in front leg and I have front leg calf unlocked. And I'm just going to grab the points here and try to start moving things out. And maybe deleting some points along the way as well. You can see there's a few here that are just kind of bunched up. So I want to grab this and move it out. And that's actually looking pretty good. And we can do the same here. I'm going to grab this one and move it out like so. Kind of bring this down a little bit. I kind of want to go out a little bit more with these. So let's grab this, move it out. And this might be a little bit too much, but we can play with it here. And then grab this one and bring it down like so. And the same for this one. Let's come in and I'm actually going to reduce this even more, kind of down like so. Actually, it might be a little bit too much. More like that. There's this little line here I can remove. And about like so. I can bring that in a bit and down. And that's looking a little bit better, I would say. We could even go further with it if we wanted to. Like I could even just kind of bring it out even more if we wanted it to just have a wider bottom like so. And with that, we could also add in a little bit of line work. So hit N on the keyboard. Let's just bring our line height back to 6.5. I have snap to objects turned on. I'm just going to come in and draw a line going across like so. And that's not looking too bad. So now we could go in and alter the other leg using similar methods, or we can just copy and paste. And I think that's what I'm going to do really quick. So let's just come over here. We have the front leg calf. I'll use Control C since I have the whole thing selected, and then come down here to the back leg group, unlock back leg calf. I can click on it and then just delete it, and then use Control Shift V to paste in place, and then just move it over and reposition it. And if you need, you can also come into your references and relocate the pivot guides. So that way, if it's easier for you to line up the way the knees are working, you can now use this to do that. So we can come in here, and as you can see, we kind of have this lined up about like so. You might want to move it down, and now it looks like the yellow circle is covering that joint. So I think that is a good position for this. So we can hide the pivot guides and bring this back. And now the legs are fixed and they're looking a little bit better. I could probably do a little bit more with it, but this should work for our purposes. Now, coming back here, I'm looking at the arms. They can maybe get shrunk in just a little bit. So what we can do is come in and we'll select all of the front arm layers. So starting with front arm, forearm, hold in Shift and go down to the front fist. Grab the free transform tool. Now I will rotate it just like that, and we'll deselect it. Then we'll select it again, making sure we just select those front arm pieces, just like that. And then grab the free transform tool, and we can shrink the arms in a little bit like so. You don't have to go too far, just a little bit. And then we can rotate it back and try to get it back into position. Now this might alter the line work a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. Let's just come in here and try to get it back. Again, you can go in and use your references if you need to. So we have the pivot guide about right there. The pivot guide now appears bigger because we did shrink the arm a little bit, but it should still work. We can come in here and just set it in like so. That should be a pretty good position for it. So now let's hide those pivot guides, and we can see what this currently looks like, and it's still looking good with the line work and everything like that. So now we can go in and do the same for the other arm. You could copy and paste these assets over here, but we also have different hand poses, so it might be best just to lock our front arm, come down here to the back arm, and let's unlock everything there. And then we're just going to select all of the layers within that back arm group, rotate it so that the hand is facing down, so that way we can once again select this and properly scale it. So we'll do that. Select it again. And just squish it in a little bit like so. That should be about right. And then we can rotate it back and get it into position. And again, you might find the pivot guides useful here because we can just come in and get everything lined back up the way we had it, or at least close to it. Okay, so now we can hide those pivot guides once again. We can lock the back arm. And just for the sake of looking at this, I'm also going to hide the back point and back open hand poses. And then come over here to the front arm. We can do the same here. I'm just going to make sure I hide those two and reveal that one. There we go. And also looking at this, let me come back to the back arm one more time. Going to select all the back arm pieces. I feel like it should be more out like this, looking at it. And again, we can look at those pivot guides just to make absolutely sure. And because of the way we adjusted the size of this, it might have changed things a little bit. And so I'm just going to nudge some of those guides over so that way you understand what's going on here. And again, if you ever have to adjust your guides, all you have to do is come down, for instance, to the back arm here and hide one of these layers, and we can zoom in, and it should allow us then to see the rounded edge, just like that. And you can come in here and establish your pivot guide like that. And again, these are a little bit bigger because we resize the arms here at the end, but it should work. Just come up like that. And then we have this right here. So we'll just reestablish those positions. Not a big deal as long as we are accurate with it. And I can bring everything back now into view, and we'll lock everything as well. Of course, hide the pivot guides though. There we go. Looks like I had my other two hands locked when I did that. I'm just gonna bring them over and up. I might have did the same for these as well. Nope, we're good there. Okay, excellent. So now the limbs have been corrected and are now set. The last thing I'm going to do is minor, and it's going to focus on the belt buckle here. If we zoom in, you'll see that it doesn't look quite right, and that's because it looks like it's floating on top of the shirt. That has to do with the size of the shirt. So let's just come in, and I want to unlock the torso, so that way we can adjust the shirt. And we can do this a couple different ways, but let's hide the jacket just so we can see what we're doing here more clearly. I'll grab the pivot point and bring it up to the top. And then with the free transform tool, simply just bring this up a little bit like so. And then we can bring the jacket back, and you can see that looks more appropriate now. There are a couple issues. If I hide that jacket, the pelvis looks like it's kind of floating now. So we can click on the pelvis with the free transform tool, just move down, get that attached, and then just bring things up a bit like so. The other thing is when I bring the jacket back to visibility, we can see the shirt here sticking out of the side on the right, and that's not good. So let's just grab that and try to bring it back in. And we can get it as close as we want to the shirt line. It might be easier, if I undo this, to grab the snap to objects and turn it off, and then just bring this over and back. Now if I look at the torso without the jacket, you can see it looks like this, and that's looking pretty good. And then the belt buckle itself, looking at this, I'm not really sure I like the eyes, so I'm going to lock everything except for the belt buckle, and then come into those eyes, change the color just to something a little bit brighter and not as dark. And I think in my original design, the eyes were closed, but we're just going to shrink them a little bit like so instead of closing, and then just come in and fill in the gaps. And we can now lock that. Okay, there we go. I think everything is looking pretty good here. Well, actually, I noticed my leg. One more thing. It's always one more thing, isn't it? Well, I think you'll get used to that if you start to animate more. I just need to come in here, and you can see here that the leg isn't quite attached. I can just bring it up like so. So that way the line work looks like it's more attached. And again, that might have to do with how I resize things. And I can see it's a similar issue on the other side as well. You can see that the rounded edge of the back leg is kind of being exposed. So again, just grab all the back leg pieces and we'll bring it up to match just like that. And then the front leg then needs to go underneath the jacket. You can see right here we have this issue. So all we have to do is just grab the jacket and we will bring it above the front leg. When we do that, we bring it also above the front arm. So just make sure front arm is also above the jacket. And of course you have your collar pieces. Also make sure those are up. And then we have the neck as well. Put that so that the front collar is overlapping it. There we go. So now that's looking a little bit better. Again, if you want to come in, you could update then the pivot guides. It's just a slight shift. We'd probably just grab these 2 points, or let's do actually these 4 points. So I'm just going to grab all those and just shift it up slightly like that. And then you should be on track then to have your guide set. Phew, all right. I think that is all the polishing that I'm going to do for this course. Again, you could keep going and going and going and building and building. It really just depends on your priorities, your deadlines, what you need, what you expect from your production, and everything else in between. So we'll pause here, and up next, we'll talk about rendering your image, and then I will share my final thoughts. For this video, we're working off of 24 Chad Vector Animate Final. Feel free to open up this file. We're just going to take a moment here and render this image out, so that way you have a copy of it. Now, we're just going to make an image, so that way you can share it with others visually. By creating an image, you're not setting this up for animation. In fact, you're basically doing the opposite. What we've done here is created a layer hierarchy so that if you want to animate, you can take it to that next step. And again, I do have a course all about how to rig and animate using layer parenting. So you can do that if you wish. But for right now, we're just going to, once again, make a nice little image that we can render out. One thing I will do is just zoom out so I can see what I'm doing here. And we could also, if we want, add a background. I can make a new layer really quick and just bring this down. We could add a gradient or whatever we wish. In this case, I'm just going to use Control-R to import. And in your exercise files, you'll find a bg.png file. We can just bring that in, and it's a little bit smaller compared to what we have here for the character, but that's okay. I can come in and just blow it up a little bit like so. So that way we just have something going on. And we can put it in like that. As you can see, it's already pretty blurred in terms of depth of field, so it should be good. And again, I know we're blowing the image up, but it should be okay again for our purposes, just to get a nice preview here. So once you have that set, in order to create an image to save and share with the world, we can go up to File, Export, Export Image. When we do this, you'll get an Export Image dialog box appear here. It can take a little bit to process, and then you can see now we have it set up. I can come over here and just zoom out. If I hold an Alt, I can click to zoom out, and you can see it's looking like this. I can save it as a PNG. That should work. You can choose different formats if you want. So one thing I do need to do is bring this over to my other monitor so I can hit the save button located on the bottom right. I couldn't see it with the lower resolution on my primary monitor here. And again, I just do that for the sake of the tutorials. So here, once we have hit save, it'll bring up a prompt. And I'm just going to save this the same as the file. So 24 Chad Vector Animate Final, hit save. And we now have that saved. It should be inside of your exercise files, so that way you can reference it if you wish.